Ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby. If you need me, call me. No matter where you are, no matter how far. Don't worry, baby. Just call my name. I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you, baby. Remember the day I set you free. I told you you could always count on me, darling. From that day on, I made a vow I'll be there when you
Right. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and making us a part of your day. And I am just absolutely thrilled to have a guest speaker, not only just because of their knowledge, but let's face it, I think a lot of you are tired of hearing Kristen, myself, and Jenny talk. So I'm very grateful to have another perspective on what recruiters see, and from the hiring manager perspective, we have Tammy from Simmons Foods, who supports too many applications and internal systems to name off. She also has fantastic dance moves that we just found out about. But again, I'm absolutely thrilled. For those of you that are new, my name is Ashley French. I work for Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. We are a nonprofit that is here to support the tech talent in the state of Arkansas. In addition to, we're also working on an initiative for advanced manufacturing. So from here on, just a reminder, I know we're all pros at this whole Zoom webinars, but you know the drill on please stay off mute or on mute, especially if you have a loud dog or a crazy child in the background like I may have. But please interact with us. Feel free to add any messages or questions, commentary in the group chat. For some reason you'd rather submit a question privately, feel free to send that to Kristen Shyrock on our team. Give a little wave, a dance. There she is. From this point on, I will pass the microphone to Stephanie Goodwin.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And that's a lot of pressure. I have a dog, I have my son at home, so I'm hoping it's not me that causes all that loud noise. But we are really excited to have the opportunity to not only meet all of you, but also share some of our experiences and interview advice that we truly hope will help you moving forward, whether that's at Simmons or whether that's at a different company. But we do want this to be really conversational, and we're happy to have you chime in anytime. So feel free and stop us if you want to ask questions or even just share your experiences with us. We welcome that. And then also, I just wanted to thank ACDS for allowing us to have this opportunity. They did help us last year start our first ever apprenticeship program within our IT organization, and we're super thankful for the opportunity to do that and promote some individuals in our company, actually out of our manufacturing facility and into IT, which is huge. So thank you, Ashley and Kristen and ACDS for getting that started for us. And then also just wanted to give a quick introduction to myself. I'm Stephanie Goodwin. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager at Simmons Foods, and I recruit for our technology organization as well as our pet food corporate organization and our pet food operations teams as well. And we've also got Stephanie Price and Tammy Janiszewski on the call with us today, who will be helping me present. Tammy is our guest speaker, and she is going to offer us perspectives from the hiring manager side. She is one of our hiring managers in IT, and I will let Stephanie and then Tammy introduce themselves as well.
Hello, so I also have two very large dogs, and a napping 1-year-old who just went down before this call, so we're going to keep our fingers crossed we nap that whole time. But so like Stephanie Goodwin, I also support our IT functions, our corporate functions, and our pet food. I've been with Simmons for 3 years now, and when I started with the company, I actually supported all of our business units and all of our functions, and my role with the company was called a sourcer. So really what I did was any hard to fill position we had, from corporate down to a skilled labor role, I would go out and try to find that candidate and entice them to come talk to us about why we're the best employer and why they should work for us. So I've had a lot of experience in different fields, and then just the different business units that Simmons has in general, which has been really cool.
Hi, I'm Tammy Janisewski. I've been with Simmons for days shy of 4 years, which is exciting. I am the principal product manager responsible for finance, HR, and shared services. And for shared services, the things that include like risk management, legal, our chaplain services that we have at Simmons, and a lot of other really fun areas that we get to help prioritize their IT needs. So thank you for letting me join today.
Well, we are going to move right along. Thank you, Tammy and Stephanie and ACBS, and jump into interview advice and components for a great interview experience. And the first thing I just want to touch on, I don't work for LinkedIn. I'm just giving some advice. If you are in the job market and you are looking today, I think that LinkedIn is a great platform to have. And I wanted to go over a study with you that was done in March of 2021. And it states that over 176 million workers in the United States have LinkedIn profiles. Over 20,000 companies in the United States use LinkedIn to recruit. Over 3 million jobs are posted to LinkedIn in the United States every month. And then each member that joins LinkedIn can add over 36 skills to their profiles and showcase their unique capabilities, their softwares, whatever they're interested in on LinkedIn. And so we just wanted to call out that having this platform when you're in the job market is just vitally important for you. And you can display your resume digitally by completing all those fields, ensuring that all of your information is relevant and up to date. Whether it's from your past or present employers. And then when recruiters are searching for you, just to give you an idea of how LinkedIn works for us, they can use all kinds of different things like keywords, job title searches, Boolean searches for very specific criteria. So for example, if you're a full stack developer, but you love coding in Python and that's where you want to go and that's where your career is headed, then make sure you have Python anywhere and everywhere all over your LinkedIn profile. Also, you can add that you're open to work so that recruiters can find you easier. And this tool lets them know that you're probably going to be interested in having a conversation very soon. And then I want to call this out because I think Stephanie Price has a really great one, but you can stand out by putting a very interesting blurb in the About You section, or even if it's just a funny story about yourself. It doesn't have to be professional, but I encourage you to go to Stephanie Price's LinkedIn and look at hers because I love it. It's great, and I think it makes her really stand out. But also just asking people to endorse you for recommendations, whether it's from your colleagues, former colleagues, your former leaders or your current leaders. This is extremely helpful as well. Not only does it build on your work experience, but it showcases your character and even sometimes your personality as well. And then you can also join, a lot of people don't know this, but you can also join focused groups on LinkedIn, especially if you're in technology. There are tons of different technology stacks out there. There's tons of different softwares. And so if there's something specific that you're interested in, you can join focus groups on LinkedIn with subject matter experts. And not only are there subject matter experts in those groups, but there's also recruiters looking for those SMEs. So we highly encourage you to join those groups as well. And so again, with all these stats and all this information on LinkedIn, you really can't lose with this platform in any job search. And then I also want to call this out. If you apply for a position and you apply, on a company website or on Indeed or anywhere else, you can also go on LinkedIn and find that company, hopefully, and then also find people that work for that company, whether they're in HR, whether they're leaders in the company, or whether they're a recruiter at the company, and reach out to them about that position that you're interested in with just a short, simple, sweet message, and see if that gets you in the door a little bit quicker rather than just applying and hoping for the best. And then Stephanie, I know you have some stuff that you'd probably like to add.
Yeah, so one, my profile, if you guys go and read it, don't judge me. But kind of on the flip side of what Stephanie Goodwin was just saying about going and looking and finding the company on LinkedIn and finding team members who work there, don't use LinkedIn as the only platform to apply for a job at. Sometimes we'll have people apply and we'll have like over 100 people apply for a job posting in 3 days, like on LinkedIn. And that's, I mean, I'm a human being. That's way too much for me to get through in a manageable amount of time. So sometimes if you do see a company's apply or has a posting and you want to apply with them and you're really excited, definitely follow those steps, but also always go back to the company website and apply via their website, because they have a system that they have to use for applicants to funnel through. And so you'll definitely get seen that way too. And then the about you, I read a lot of profiles. And as I mentioned, I worked in a lot of different business units for our company. And so shockingly, I didn't go to school for all of these things. So it's really nice to read why someone's passionate about accounting, or why you're passionate about stacking, like doing full stack with Python. Like, what about Python changed your life, or whatever the case may be. Like, sharing just those tidbits about yourself and making you be more relatable is really nice. And I mean, your picture can show that you hike, and in my head, I'm like, that's awesome that they're hikers. I'm a hiker, but I need a little dialogue around it, or a little text and context, and that's always helpful too.
And then Tammy, as far as someone reaching out on LinkedIn about, let's say you have a job on your team and someone reaches out to you about this job, what would entice you about that message to make you want to respond or send it to us?
So give me some information about a project that you've started, but maybe don't, or something great that you've done, but leave me hungry for more information. So I have to reach out to you to get the answers that now you've got my curiosity up, right? And so I need more. Leave me hungry for more, I guess is what I would say. Don't send the novel, but leave me hungry for more.
I love it. Thank you.
So how should that message change, Stephanie Square, if they're messaging someone in HR?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ashley. I think, like I said, just keeping it short, simple, and sweet, but expressing your interest. Obviously, if you've looked at that job and you know you're qualified and you know that this is something you're passionate about, if you reach out to us on LinkedIn about that and the reason why, and we looked at your LinkedIn profile and we're like, this person's qualified, this person's great, of course we're going to respond. Of course we're going to reach out. Of course we're going to schedule time to talk with you. So I would say for HR recruiting, short and simple and sweet, as long as you're qualified. And then for hiring manager, obviously why, their hiring manager is going to know the day-to-day of that job and understand a little bit more about a project or something like that. So I think it's great perspective from Tammy.
I would add that if you're going to call out a project, or you're going to call out why you're qualified, and I go and flip to your LinkedIn profile and it's blank, that doesn't help me at all. So make sure, like, whatever you're calling out, I can easily follow along on your profile, or I can catch okay, this makes sense. I see where this correlation is coming from now. Because again, I didn't go to school for all of these things. So I need you to help me connect those dots a little bit more than probably your hiring manager, like Tammy, would need.
Exactly. So we're going to move into interview tips. And here at Simmons, obviously we think that this is pretty simple. So we hope that we can relay it in a way that makes it feel good for you and makes you understand the process a little bit more. But We always say that you should work everything out on the very first call, whether that's with a recruiter or someone screening you really quickly. We just want you to make sure that before you decide to move forward in the interview process with a company or with that specific opportunity, make sure it's right for you on that very first call. And so here's some tips. Again, one, just make sure your LinkedIn is up to date with relevant information and keywords. And then number two, I love it when candidates want to get to know me too, because our goal on that very first call is to get to know you. We want to know what experience you have, your professional transitions. Why did you leave your companies? Why did you move on? What were those reasons? And then hopefully the recruiter is willing to give you at least 30 minutes of their time, if not more. But try to learn more about them. A lot of the times we ask you, you know, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do for fun outside of work? But return those questions as well. And then ask them, what do they love about the company? Why do they work for this company? What's so great about this company? And then making sure that that company aligns with, you know, what you're looking for too. And then after your recruiter has asked all of their questions, don't ever let them walk away without asking these questions if they haven't covered them yet. So the first would be pay range. Another is vacation policy. Additional incentives. Do they have a bonus? Do they have other benefits that are more unique, like time for volunteering or anything like that? Ask about their standard benefits package. That's important to a lot of people. Ask about, I think this is a really important one. And whenever I meet with my hiring manager, I always like to ask these questions, but ask about the team structure for that opportunity. What's the culture or the dynamic of that team? And then who you'll be working with, who you're going to be reporting to, and just the overall dynamic of that team with the company and the functionality within all of that. And then the remaining interview process. So you should know what to expect moving forward. Nothing should surprise you. You should know the timeline, who you're going to be interviewing with next, how many more interviews they are. Are they going to be in person? Are they going to be on site? What all that looks like. And then finally, what to wear. And the only reason we call this out is because we are in manufacturing. So some of our interviews take place within a manufacturing facility. You have to wear very specific things to keep yourself and other team members safe. But also, you know, in today's day and age, are you interviewing on video? Is the company very casual? If you show up in a suit and tie, are you going to feel silly? You just want to be comfortable. You want to put your best foot forward and you want to feel good in every aspect of that interview. So that's what I would give you as advice for making a great interview experience. Steph, Tammy, what would you add?
I just recently had some director of sales interviews take place via video. I had 2 openings, so we had quite a few candidates who went through the process. And my team, my vice president told me, he's like, can you tell them that they don't need to wear a blazer or a jacket or anything warm, like that would keep them warm in their house, like it's summertime? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, so he, just being a compassionate human, was like, yeah, let's just have that dialogue right up front. Like, I'm not judging you if you're not wearing a tie in your house for this, it's okay. So I thought that was really cool. And the other thing I would say just about the interview process is I always think of it like dating. A two-way street. So you should ask those questions that you kind of would ask on a first date, only about a job. Like, ask those to your recruiter. We're probably, I would say, the non-biased in terms of, like, no question is shocking to us because we get asked a lot of random questions. Yes, and you could get a second date. So which would be with Tammy. But that's how I always think about just the whole process. Like, the whole thing make you happy, you know? Like, for me, did he open the door every time I got in the car, like every day? Like, that made me happy. Why I married my husband. But like, if there was a point where those things weren't happening and you weren't happy, or the process seemed to lag a little bit, if that causes to make you pause for a second, that's okay too, because we as a company want you to love us as much as we're loving you. So
So I saw Tanya's question about how do you keep from being so nervous in an interview. So I could give my own personal experience practices that I do. I literally will ask someone to practice with me before an interview. That way I can at least get really comfortable with the questions that I want to ask. And the more that you explore the company that you're going to go work with, and the more comfortable you are with the position that you're looking for, that nervousness will just melt away. And the more practice you have in interviews, the easier they get, right? So every interview is a practice for your next interview. So I think that that's something to always remember, right? So if I didn't get this one, but what did I learn from this interview? Then I can apply to the next interview. So hopefully that helps you a little bit on that. The only other thing I was going to add about a great interview is we're living in some very different times, right? You used to be able to just hand a resume, a business card. Here's a copy of the project charts that I did, or the reporting that I did for my project that doesn't include any information that we wouldn't want to disclose to another company. But here's my leave behind, right? So your leave behind now is your follow-up email, which is thank you for the interview. Hey, I thought of another question, which to me that always, sometimes that nervousness kicks in. You're like, dang it, I wish I had asked them about what does an everyday look like for this role? Is it a changing day? Is it change every day? And do that in that follow-up email. Ask that additional question, because once again, that gets your hiring manager engaged again with you and keeps that connection right after the interview.
That's great feedback, Tammy. And we do have a slide that talks about how to ease your nerves in the interview process. So we'll go over that too, Tanya. And then I just want to let you guys know I can't see the questions because I'm sharing my screen. So if something does pop up, please stop me, because I would love to talk through that as well. All right. So I wanted to take a minute again to talk to you, about this side of it. So what does the company want, and what do you want in a company, which is a little bit what Tammy was talking about as well. But you want to make sure, again, that the company and then the opportunity you're interviewing for truly aligns with not only your interests and your passions, but also your core values. So there's, Simmons Foods is a privately held, third-generation family-owned company. We're an end-to-end manufacturer of poultry, pet food, and animal nutrition. And that consists of various different things. Our plants, some of them don't smell great. Our pet food's really cool. We've got a lot of different processes. Some of those are automated, some of them are very manual, but you want to make sure that when you're interviewing for a company, you understand where they came from, why they are where they are today. Are they stable? Are they successful? Is the culture, positive and healthy? And is it something that you want to be a part of? And if so, you have to know why that is on your end. And just to let you know what our core values are, we have 5. Our first is put people first, act with integrity, take responsibility, be curious, and take action. And so that's kind of what makes us Simmons. And we have a pretty great culture, and we've got great leaders who live this out every day. It's on every single wall of every facility we have, every building we have. It's on our e-signature lines. Tammy's signature line is building a culture that no one wants to walk away from. And I love that. And that's why, we are passionate about what we do here at Simmons. And that's what's important to our company. But hiring managers, like Tammy was saying earlier, they also want to know that you've researched the company and why you're interested in the company. Do you know what our core values are and how you align with the company mission and core values? And I will say this, I think Ashley wanted to share the definition of a passive candidate or a passively sourced candidate. But even if we have gone out and sought you out and found you for a very specific opportunity, and we talk to you and you're interested, and we move you forward to meet with the hiring manager in the interview process, you should probably still research the company, even though you weren't looking, even though we reached out to you. It's still really important for you to show that you are interested and you are excited, and these are the reasons why. And then excuse me, Tammy had a great example. When we started our apprenticeship program last year with ACDS, she actually had questions for our apprentice candidates about our core values, and she would ask them, what core value is your favorite and which one most closely aligns with you and your personality? And I just loved that. And so it's important that when you go into an interview, you understand those things. Stephanie or Tammy, would you like to add to that? No.
Sorry, I was looking at another chat. It says, it may sound crazy, but apply for a job that you have no experience in. I'd love to work for the city or maybe a state job, but my experience is in warehouse. I'm tired of limiting myself to warehouse jobs. Absolutely, right? I think really quickly for this one in particular, we have a tendency to say, oh, I only need about 50% of what this job wants. And I can tell you as a hiring manager, and when I'm meeting with Stephanie, I make an absolute wish list. I wish this person would have had all of this experience for this, and this, but Stephanie also knows which ones are most important. So don't tie yourself down or don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Even if you have 2 of the 10 things that are listed, those might be the 2 that are most important to that hiring manager, and your recruiter is going to know that.
I love that, Tammy.
Go ahead. Sorry, Stephanie. I was just gonna say, you just want to make sure that you read the job description, because this is really extreme, but if it says like must be 20 years licensed electrician and you applied for that and you don't have 20 years of being a licensed electrician and the job clearly says you must have that, you can always apply for the role, but that might be why you're not getting called back, because what is on your resume and what you're presenting isn't matching what the job itself is saying. We have to have this. So Tammy's wish list is on top of we have to have this.
And I would also call out for the question that was asked about limiting yourself. There's so many resources today, and now they're even virtual, but get connected to your community, especially if it's like a government or state job that you're interested in. A lot of the times people are in specific groups and they meet monthly, whether that's like an HR group or I was thinking like a Rotary group or something like that, where you can meet people that are maybe connected to the community or maybe connected to state government officials. But get your foot in the door. Don't limit yourself. Try to figure out how you can make a way for yourself. And if that's something that you're truly interested in, I would just Google, like, how do I get into a government agency? How do I get into a state agency? And look at what steps you need to start taking in your career to kind of make that move forward.
I saw a really, go ahead, Ashley, go ahead, sorry.
Well, we have a previous webinar that I think is really focused on, Tonya, using networking. The hardest job you're going to get is when you're transitioning into a career or industry that you haven't done before. So you have to kind of think outside the box on expanding your network. I love Stephanie's recommendation of using an online resource. So, you know, such as getting some type of career certificate in data entry or data analytics. It depends on what you're targeting, what you're trying to get into. But I think you have to show something job, you know, related to what they're hiring for to get that recruiter to request an interview, to get the hiring manager, you know, so it may not be on your work history, but maybe it's in some self-study, and then expanding that who you know network. I think, you know, 60% of job transitions come through some form of the who you know network, or, you know, a non-traditional LinkedIn message. So I think I'd love to follow up with you after and kind of share that previous webinar in hopes to kind of perk some different ideas. Great question.
I can tell you, I actually worked in higher education before I came to recruiting. So I worked in higher education and oversaw skilled labor programs and met recruiters at a conference who recruited me to come recruit for them. And that's how I got into recruiting. My background's not recruiting, didn't go to school for HR, but it was all about I guess my network. I fell into this network of people at a conference, and that's how I got into the career that I now love. But it's totally true. I know everyone here is like, oh yeah, that happened to my neighbor or something like that. But like, it really happened to me. That's how I found myself working with Simmons and working in recruiting.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that stuff. And we will talk more about that too, like how to get connected. But we wanted to touch on this, going back to like job descriptions and what you're qualified for. We want you to be very truthful with us and answer truthfully about your experience. We don't want to set you up for failure in the interview process. And we don't want to set you up for failure in your career. And we don't want you to set yourself up for failure either. So as recruiters, you know, Tammy mentioned I meet with her whenever she needs a job posted, and I try to thoroughly understand that position as much as possible before we start recruiting for her to make sure I know the exact must-haves, but also the preferred needs of that role. And so, you know, we can make sure and screen candidates on the front end, but sometimes a candidate may slip through the cracks that maybe really isn't qualified, but somehow they pulled the wool over our eyes and we didn't see that. But the hiring manager will be able to see that. And that's the bigger point, is if you make it through us, but you don't make it through the hiring manager, and the hiring manager understands that you probably pulled the wool over our eyes, they're not going to be thrilled with that. So answer as truthfully as you can about your experience and your skill sets. And I will tell you, when you say that you don't know how to do something, but you're wanting to learn it, it goes a lot further than overselling yourself and then setting yourself up for failure in the future. And also, if you lie to us or if you try to lie to a hiring manager, it could be detrimental for any future opportunity with that company. So we just want to tell you, like, honesty is the best policy. Being genuine about your experiences, always the best policy. And before you apply to a role, again, like Stephanie said, look at the job description. Make sure you meet those must-haves, or at least get very close to those must-haves. Steph, did you want to add to this?
On top of being honest about your true like soft and hard skills, be honest about your pay and your vacation requirements and all of those things. Because if upfront you know you need to make X number of dollars, well, we probably might know like that's like way more than we can pay. Or we might be paying way more than that, and then it makes your day. Like, so it's nice to have that conversation up front. And just kind of get it out of the way. I know it's a little awkward, but again, remember it's dating, and sometimes there's that awkward conversation that first date, but then everyone's on the same page. So if you're the person who gets the offer, that very last conversation shouldn't be a whole bunch of negotiating, because we've already been really transparent with each other throughout this whole process of what you're looking for. And we know we wouldn't bring you in for an interview if we know we can't meet your expectations. Like that, we wouldn't want to waste your time. That would be awful of us.
100% accurate. And then I didn't know, Tammy, do you have anything to add to this slide?
No, I appreciate the honesty, right, and the truthfulness. I can't tell you, Stephanie, you've been a part of it where we've gotten all the way to the part of the offer, and we can't, all of a sudden the salary jumps up beyond what we can pay. And they had to, well, you can see my experience now and it's great, but that's not the role that I'm hiring for today. And so it's both ways, right? It's always, remember, throughout the entire interview process, it's a two-way street. I want to learn about you. You should be learning about me. I should be interviewing you, and you should be interviewing me. I want the best candidate for the role. You need to make sure this is someone that you can work with every day.
Absolutely. That's all great feedback.
Right, since I think, compensation is always kind of an interesting dance, and we all have different opinions. I kind of know how I like it handled. I'd love to hear from, the Simmons crew on when to bring it up and what's the best way to address it. How do you like a candidate to kind of share that range?
So going back to that third slide, what makes a great interview, always discuss it on the very first call. If a recruiter tells you, oh, we are not talking about pay today, I would ask why. why would you move forward in an interview if that pay or compensation is not where you need to be at? So for me, you know, usually I'm the one asking, and I always tell my candidates, you know, this is everyone's favorite question, but what are your salary expectations? And usually by that time, it's usually, you know, towards the end of the call, I have a pretty good idea of their experience. So I'm assuming that they're in line with our pay. And, you know, usually candidates will say, well, where I am today is here. This is where I'd like to be. Or, you know, here's a range of what I'm thinking. Does this work for you? And I'm always really honest with the candidate. If you're out of our range, I will tell you that. And I will tell you exactly what we're targeting for that role. And I will tell you, you know, our benefits, our extra incentives that we have, whatever that looks like, so that you have all the pieces to make sure that that aligns with you. But I will say, don't ever be afraid to clarify that on the very first call. You have a right to know. You have a right to decide if that's something you want to move forward with, and if it aligns with you. And sometimes pay isn't the most important thing to a person, and they tell us that too. And that's great. I'm glad you're open and flexible. I'm glad that what's more important to you is culture. But if it's pay, that's okay too. People are different. Things are different to different people. Some are more important than others. So always on the first call, and that's how I would approach it. And, you know, don't be afraid to just say, hey, recruiter, just curious, you know, what are you targeting as far as pay goes for this position? That's a totally acceptable question to ask on the very first call.
And the only other thing I would add is your base pay is only part of that compensation package, right? Ask for the complete compensation package. What do the benefits look like? I once had worked for a company, and my insurance alone for my family was $400 a month, which the base pay plus, and then take an additional $400 a month was not going to make that very feasible for me. So it's a total compensation that you need to be thinking of. And bonuses along, you know, that adds, that's always a nice thing to get at some point. But also remember, a bonus isn't a guarantee of the salary, and that's come into questions, been some conversations before too that we've had. So this has been lots of great conversations today.
I think that's great, Tammy. I was going to say the exact same thing. And if you're interviewing, you should probably have an idea of what your compensation package needs to look like. Like roughly how much can I afford to spend on insurance, and roughly what should my base salary look like? So you should know those things kind of going into it too. So that question shouldn't catch you off guard as the candidate when a recruiter asks like, hey, so is that number just your base pay? Like you should somewhat have an idea of what your base pay number is, in addition to all these other incentives that the company can offer.
Absolutely. And this is my favorite slide. It's mostly because this little girl is so super cute, but we always talk about unicorns in recruiting and finding that perfect candidate for our hiring managers. But I think this also ties back to, I think it was Tanya's question about how do you eliminate nerves in the interview process. I just want to tell everyone on this call, you are a unique human being. You are a unique individual. You have talents that we don't have at our company yet. You are you. We don't have you on our team yet. So we want to know who you are, how your uniqueness fits into our company and into this opportunity. But it's also important for you to know who you are and know what your strengths are as well. And so in any interview, this is your one shot to brag on your accomplishments, shine, and balance it with your unique skills and capabilities. Make this opportunity super fun and conversational. So if you go into an interview, you're confident about, you know, who you are, what you're passionate about, what your strengths are, then it should naturally flow. But if you're going into an interview where you're not super confident about what you want to do, you don't know a whole lot about the company, you don't know about the position, you don't have skills in these areas, it could feel maybe robotic, and it could be very like just Q&A dialogue. And for that kind of interview, it usually doesn't stand out. So again, just going back to making sure you know what you're passionate about, you know what you're good at, and applying yourself to those areas that are important to you. And we understand that it's nerve-wracking. It's also can sometimes be nerve-wracking for us too, but knowing who you are and what you're passionate about and why this role is exciting for you are all areas that truly will help you eliminate that anxiety. And when we screen you, our goal is to, when you interview, the two things that you feel are anxious and excited. And the one thing that we want to do on that first initial screen with you is eliminate the anxiety and break through to that excitement and see your passion and see who you are. That is so important for us and so important for the company, because it allows us again to see your soft skills and really get to know you better. So I hope that helps with Tanya's question initially. Stephanie, Tammy, anything else you'd add here?
No, just encourage being conversational. So I just started recruiting ITIS for Simmons when I came back from maternity leave last October. So I'm very new to this industry, and there are things on resumes like jelly bean that I'm like, what does that mean? And stuff that like I don't know what they're about. So like when I'm having that dialogue with the candidate and it seems like I'm asking pretty easy questions, I really need you as the candidate to have that dialogue back with me and really explain your experience. And that's a big part of helping you stand out. And I know for our roles, a lot of the times we're looking for someone who can talk to non-IT stakeholders and explain the process. So if you can explain it to me and I can understand and feel really confident and go back to the team, that's really huge for us. But just keep it really conversational and don't feel like a question. If you get asked a follow-up question, if it feels weird, it might just be because that person asking truly doesn't know.
Yeah, that's a great call out too. Tammy.
No, I just love this slide. I just wish I had this little girl's courage.
That's so great. All right, so Tammy touched on this a little bit earlier, but I think it's really important to touch on it again. So speaking of standing out, I think, our company, we're growing very quickly. We are very busy. Our hiring managers are very busy. We as recruiters are very busy. But we are so excited and we appreciate not only your interest in Simmons, but the time that you've taken, whether it's out of your current job or just out of your personal life to come and interview with us. And so while we appreciate your end and all the things that you put forth in the interview process, we want to know that you're appreciative of us and our time as well. So don't forget to say thank you. And after interviews, I don't know why this has sort of like gone away, but I think that thank you note is so important and it has evolved. I will say you don't have to mail us a card. You don't have to go track down our mailing address, put a stamp on a card and write a note. You can send a super simple email, but I still do sometimes get mailed thank you cards, which means the world to me, but we don't expect you to do that. A simple thank you email is just as great, and it does go really far. Most of my hiring managers will if we are neck to neck with top 2 candidates and one of them, and they have the same skill sets, they're both great, but one of them has sent thank you notes along the way and the other hasn't, guess what? That thank you note goes really far. So just keep that in mind. And then I also want to call this out. When you're taking initiative to send a thank you note, again, our company, our hiring managers, our recruiters are super busy. So pay attention to the details. So if we send out a calendar invite and it has all of the hiring managers' emails in there and you want to send an email, but you send me an email asking for their emails and you already have them, that, in my mind, I'm like, is this person really detail oriented like they said they were on the first screen? So just think through that and take initiative to go that extra mile. Or, if you don't have their email addresses, if they weren't on that calendar invite, you can even find them on LinkedIn and send them thank you messages on LinkedIn or connect with them and then send those. It's a great way to connect with them on LinkedIn, stay in touch, but also stand out. And like Tammy said earlier, it's your leave behind. It's your modern day leave behind. Steph, would you add to that?
Just, you can always, I don't want to say use common sense, but like if the recruiter you've been talking to, our email address is and at simfoods.com and it's first dot last name. So if you know your interview panel's first dot last name, probably guess what their email address is going to look like. If it gets kicked back to you, you can always follow up like, hey, I tried using this and it got kicked back to me. And we, as the recruiters, obviously will always help you, but sometimes just taking that little bit of initiative, like, oh, probably this whole company looks like this. You're probably right. So you can always just take that gamble and see how it pans out. And if it doesn't, I mean, you'll find out within what, less than 2 hours that the email got kicked back to you and try again. It's okay.
And Ashley actually called this out to me when I was telling her about this presentation. She told me that, yeah, sometimes you just get an email from the candidate saying, hey, can you forward this for me? So they have already sent you the thank you email. All you have to do is forward it. And I've gotten that too. And that's great as well. That's super simple for us. We just forward it along, no problem. But just taking that initiative, saying thank you, it's really still important in the interview process today. All right. I love this slide too, just because this guy's face cracks me up. But as recruiters, we live for the chance to deliver an offer to you. We are super passionate about making sure that we've given you an offer that's great for you, that's great for Simmons. It provides for you and your family, puts food on your table, but also helps our company grow. And hiring awesome team members is why we do what we do. So delivering feedback that you didn't get the offer or the opportunity is equally as awkward and just as difficult for us as it is for you. It stings on both sides of the table. So please know that from a recruiter perspective, it's hard, it's difficult having those conversations. But what doesn't work out now could be an even better opportunity in the future. So don't burn bridges by getting upset. Be grateful for the opportunity, be humble, be thankful. And I understand, like, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you've spent 3 interviews, tons of hours going through this preparation for the interview, and you can be upset, but just be careful how you react to those conversations. If you are upset, don't send unfavorable emails because we may not consider you for the future. Whereas on the other side of that, if you're thankful and you're grateful and you're humble and you want to, be considered for future opportunities and you let us know that, we will. And I know Tammy has great examples of this. If you want to share those, Tammy.
I have so many examples. And there's a lot of chat going on down here, which keeps my shiny objects this morning. So no, we've had a couple of really great opportunities. We had a gentleman that Stephanie, I believe he had interviewed for a couple different roles on different teams. 3. He had interviewed with 3 different teams, and Stephanie was like, Tammy, this guy is really good. I really hope we can find him a home. And it just happened to be that he had the skill set that I was looking for on my team, and he has done nothing but be a success since he joined the team. And I'm so excited that we were able to bring him on. And then earlier on, probably about 9 months ago, I had a chance to I was interviewing for a role, and I actually chose a candidate who some of the team had worked with before. And my second candidate was my second choice was a gentleman who, what I remember about this guy is because I asked this question in every interview. At the last question that I ask is, okay, if I wake up tomorrow morning with amnesia and I only remember one thing about you from this interview, what is it that you want me to remember? And this gentleman said, I'm the guy that brings the good muffins to the meetings. And so the position came open again, and I asked Stephanie, can you find me that guy, the guy that brings the good muffins to the meetings, and see if he's still interested? So when I say every interview is an interview for a potential interview for a different position, it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those stories, Tammy. Thank you for sharing that. And then I did see a question come through about gaps, whether you're a parent and you stayed home or due to COVID. I think that's a great question, especially because of the pandemic. But I will say, so for a recruiter, we should never, ever take into consideration, if you became a parent and that's why you have a gap in your resume, we should never take that into consideration when we're going through the hiring process. If you have the skills, if you meet the minimum qualifications of that role, then you are qualified and you are just as eligible and have every right to be considered for that role as everyone else. And then whatever that gap looks like for you, as long as you can explain that gap from a reasonable perspective, and then also say like, hey, and during this gap, I stayed up to date on this technology. I took these courses in my spare time. I kept up to date with this company and where they were headed. I mean, those are all important factors showing that like, yes, you had this gap, but you still have this experience and you still took initiative to stay up to date on this technology or whatever that looks like for those experiences or skill sets for that role. Would you add to that, Steph?
I would say there's no right or wrong answer for this part, but I like it when it's on a resume. Like if you have a gap and your gap is because you stayed at home or you took care of a sick family member and it's just like 2 sentences, like, so then I'm not questioning like, what did they do for 3 years? Like what happened here? And then now I'm like kind of nervous as the recruiter to ask you like, hey, do you mind telling me about that a little bit? Like, because I don't know how sensitive of a subject it could be for you. Like, obviously I want to lead my conversations with empathy, but at the same time, I'm like, I kind of need to know what happened. Like walk over this story with me. So for me personally, I don't mind if it's on a resume or if it's on a LinkedIn, like the explanation of that gap. Actually haven't seen any resumes yet that had a gap due to COVID and they put COVID as their reasoning. I've had people say maybe they left a company and it said due to COVID, like in parentheses behind it. Maybe they've only been out for like 6 months or so, but not in terms of like, if we go back to March 2020 and since March 2020 looking for a job, haven't found anything due to COVID. But again, me personally, if I saw those, they just help me get the story a little easier up front. And then it helps again with the dialogue and having a normal conversation with you a little easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great call out, Stephanie. And recruiting is an arm of human resources. And so I always tell my hiring managers, I'm not in HR, but we do follow very similar policies. So again, if you have a reason for that gap and it's personal, you can share that with us. You can be honest with us about it, but know that we're not going to take that forward. We'll tell the hiring manager they have a great reason for this. They have the skill sets you're looking for and they're a great candidate, but we will not take those personal reasons forward because those are confidential to you and those are personal to you. And we understand that and we empathize with you on that as well. All right. This is the last slide before we wrap up, and then we have a super exciting riddle that I'm excited for Stephanie to present to you all. But also my husband is the one that shared it with me, and I thought it was really funny. But no Googling, you're not allowed to Google the answer to the riddle. But before we move forward, I did want to just take a minute to share with you, as a recruiter, I've been on the recruiter seat, but I've also interviewed for jobs. So I've been on both sides. So not only is it important for us to share experiences for you to have a great interview experience, but we want to share experiences as a recruiter. I think it's really important for you to know, like when you talk to a recruiter, this is what we face, but recruiting's not easy. Broken down, let's say, I have 30 positions in a month and we have 5 candidates for every position. So if you do the math on that, 30 times, that's 150 people. Then you add into the mix for those 30 positions, I have 1 hiring manager for every single position. And we try to meet with our hiring managers every week to update them. So that's 180 people that we're either touching on a weekly or monthly basis. And we might be We might be, you know, doing all kinds of different things with those candidates. And that's a really conservative number, because when I think about one role, usually we're reviewing up to 50 applications or more for that position. And we usually each day spend 3 to 4 hours on recruiter screens. And usually I have like 6 screens each day. So that's a lot of time talking. It's a lot of time on calls. So in between running 30 positions, meeting with 30 hiring managers, screening candidates, scheduling interviews, drafting offers, making recommendations for offers, reporting out on our performance and our KPIs, posting positions, it's a lot. And we are human beings and we totally drop the ball. So please understand that we are not perfect. We won't do great in every single scenario, but we try. And I am not making excuses for recruiters that have ghosted you and have never reached back out. I don't think there is any excuse for that. And I think that's unacceptable. But I do want to tell you, like, if you haven't heard from us, it's okay to reach out, whether you call us, whether you email us, or even text us. In today's day and age, it's okay to reach out. And 9 times out of 10, we're going to have a really good explanation for us and the reason why we've had a delay or anything like that. And we need feedback too. We need to know how to get better. We want to get better. We want to serve you better. We want you to have a great experience. We want you to join our company. We want to make you offers. So I just want to express that. Just also have grace for us. This is our job. This is important to us. We want you to have a great experience. And I hope that that helps you understand a little bit more about the recruiter's perspective as well. Steph, please share. It looks like we're almost out of time though.
Well, I was just gonna say, sometimes your recruiters take vacation, and I always tell my team members, like, hey, I'm gonna be out next week. So if you don't hear anything, it'll be okay. And our hiring managers are the same. So sometimes there is a delay. Please keep in mind that, like I said, we all have lives too. And if you as a candidate have a vacation and you don't want to do an interview that week because you're on vacation, it's 100% acceptable to say, like, hey, I'm actually going to be out of pocket that week for family vacation. Can we look at the following week or look at a different day? And yes, that's okay too.
Yes.
So.
Okay. Finally, this is us. We all have families. We're all humans. And then Stephanie, if you want to move forward with the riddle.
Okay, I want to say,
can I at least tell the awesome price?
Yes.
So it is a $240 value that will successfully help your job search, hopefully. So we're giving away a Google career certificate. And so it's basically a 6-month access. It's a wonderful kind of stamp on your resume that shows something recent that you've accomplished. Managers like Tammy, who doesn't know Google? And so there is a data automation, there's an IT fundamentals, there's a UI UX. You get to pick your choice. So, and no Googling. All right.
No. All right, just want you guys to know, I feel like Bilbo and Gollum in the cave when they have their riddle off, if you've ever watched The Hobbit. All right, I have keys but no doors. I have space but no rooms. You can enter but you cannot leave. What am I? Oh, Austin got it. It looked like first.
Way to go. Wait, they all must have known this.
They were way faster than I was.
I love it.
All right, well, way to go, Austin, on that answer. And then Tanya and everyone on this call, we hope that you connect with us on LinkedIn and then reach out. Like, even if you're not interested in careers at Simmons, we just want to hear from you. We want to know you. I'm always like available for career advice or resume help, just anything that you guys need. Please connect with us. Please let us know how we can help you. And just thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Stephanie, Tammy, thank you so much for joining us and the fantastic conversation. do we have time for a couple questions, or is that
Yeah.
okay? Or whoever
Yeah,
needs
yeah.
to jump on your end, I can hang out.
Yeah, if we have more questions, I'm happy to stay on.
And Tanya, I will connect with you one-on-one. Just anytime it's medical, it's probably best to do in a one-on-one situation, but we'll definitely get your questions addressed. Anyone, want to come off mute and ask any questions, or even share an experience with a recruiter or something they learned on LinkedIn? I think my biggest takeaway, Stephanie, is remembering to put everything on your LinkedIn profile, that recruiters do use that. So to have the resume attached, but not to forget about the about you section, and remembering to add those GitHub links, or even just your projects, whatever you're doing to, highlight whatever's job relevant to the positions you're applying for.
Absolutely. And I will say too, to that point, you don't even have to upload a resume on LinkedIn anymore. I mean, your profile is your digital
resume, but when we search, as long as you have, job titles, keywords in there that's important to you, we will find you. It's pretty easy to find, but you don't have to upload like a resume or anything specific like that.
Looks like,
Okay.
Jonathan, do you have a question? I saw you come off mute. Thinking about it.
Yeah, I was wondering, so what I found is a lot of places will ask me like 2 years of Excel experience. But since I'm, right out of college, I've had, 4 years of college. Almost every data project we had would be Excel. We'd have to clean the data. But as far as like professional career, I haven't had one that required Excel. So would I put, yes, I have 2 years, or would I not put that?
We consider bachelor's degrees, we consider MBAs into our professional career in our job descriptions. And usually our job description reads, must have bachelor's degree or 4-year equivalent professional experience. So I would just say that's a great question to ask specific to whatever job you're applying for, Jonathan. But I think for us, we absolutely consider your schooling as part of your professional career as well.
Awesome, thank you.
And when in doubt, round up, Jonathan. So I would, and you can always explain if they address the, to make sure you're honest, say, oh, well, I, made the assumption that, the hands-on experience I had for this, coursework was related and equivalent.
So Nicholas asked a similar question. How do you overcome entry-level positions requiring 1 to 2 years minimum experience for qualifications? Again, read the job description. If it says must have, professional experience 1 to 2 years, and then it specifies what that experience looks like, and you are just graduated with no internships, then maybe that's not the right job for you. But if it truly says 0 to 2 years of experience and it requires a bachelor's degree, then again, we would consider that as your professional experience. Would you agree, Steph? What else would you say around that?
No, I think that makes sense. I also think that sometimes the market, though, and no one wants this advice, I'll be very honest, sometimes the market's really hard. And if you need a job, sometimes taking that 1 to 2 years of experience, if you need to just take into the entry-level role, even if you are a little more qualified for it, getting your foot in the door is always beneficial, and you can work your way up. I started with Simmons, and this is my 3rd title with the company. Like, I've received 3 promotions within the organization. So companies are really good at promoting, or at least I know Simmons is really good at promoting. So I had to take a step back, though, to take 2 steps forward. And sometimes you just have to do that.
I heard something really cool just last week about, you're always saying that you want to climb the corporate ladder, and it was the corporate lattice. And think of it as a corporate lattice versus a corporate ladder, in that you're getting that experience, the sideways and then back up and across, and you're building a lattice more than a straight ladder. It's like you get that depth of knowledge that will help you down your career if you think of it that way. And wow, that was really eye-opening for me, and how to help others and how to explain that how do you get that depth of knowledge, right?
I love that. That's great.
And Nicholas, one thing to really point out, what you're referencing is a big piece on why our nonprofit exists. So the fact of the matter is, if you look out, there's not a ton of jobs that say 0 to 2 years of experience. And the fact that there's a nonprofit that exists to educate employers like Simmons, Walmart, even the smaller shops, to you can't have that high requirement on, there's got to be more feeder positions, entry points, whether you're looking at internal talent, but we have to have more opportunities for folks to get started. I think, you know, while we're hitting that angle from a long-term strategy, what you can do now is look at some of those non-traditional ways to enhance your job search. You don't just rely on networking, LinkedIn messages, self-learning. I think you're also gonna, it's a numbers game. You're gonna have to apply to X amount of positions. But I think also think about, you know, you can volunteer. Go to a nonprofit, the American Heart Association, the food bank. If you want to be a data analyst, say, you know, I'd love to get some experience in Excel. I'll work for free, and maybe you only have time to do that once or twice a month. But I think there's just some kind of creative ways to kind of enhance, you know, finding more positions, getting your foot in the door, and then also kind of working towards that years of experience.
Yeah, it's a great call out.
All right. Well, anything else? Last call? No? Well, Stephanie, thank you so much, and Stephanie Price as well, and Tammy, you know, shout out to Simmons Foods. If you haven't looked on their career site, I will make sure to send that in our follow-up email. A wonderful employer that really does value their current employees and the hiring process. So thank you guys for donating your time and sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm late. I have a question.
Yeah.
It's an HR process question, and I'm just curious. Like, I've applied for a job, and I had a in